Healing Seekers is a 501c3 nonprofit, and we go to different parts of the world, some of the more remote areas of the world, and we film extensively. And from that footage, we create educational documentaries, educational materials for school systems. Since our inception in 2006, I cannot tell you the number of students who have wanted to go with us on these expeditions. And it wasn't until Melanie came along and made that a reality that we were allowed to work with great students like you. Our mission has always been to have students join us on these expeditions because we believe that an education extends far beyond a typical classroom experience. And it is when you immerse a student in an environment and they experience things that they have these epiphanies in life, and that passion begins to emerge. And at that point is when you really see a difference in a kid and in a child and in a soul on this planet. So it has been an honor for us to be a part of this. It's been an honor for me to walk with you and witness this part. As well as the faculty members. And I'm the one, I think, who has grown the most and who has learned the most because you showed me perspectives and insights that I had never seen before of all the years that I've traveled to these indigenous cultures.
So before I talk about my own research, I'm just going to talk a little bit about the relationship between the three projects this summer. So my research focused on the rights and ethics surrounding accessing traditional knowledge by outsiders and non-Indigenous people. Corinne's work focused on the impact and importance of the usage of traditional knowledge, specifically the eco-psychological and life benefits of traditional knowledge. And Adele's work focused on research and development of pharmaceuticals using traditional healing knowledge. And what we found is that really an Indigenous rights framework is relevant for the protection of traditional knowledge in Madagascar. In the case of protecting traditional knowledge, the distinctions between indigeneity and indigenous and traditional are not so important. And I think the most exciting thing about this work is that it expands the potential for an ethics of Indigenous rights to be applied just beyond clear-cut indigeneity, which I think opens up that ethic for application all over the world, specifically in places like Africa, where often indigeneity is not easily, that's not a framework that's easily applied. So out of these case studies, we came up with a set of recommendations for healing seekers. These recommendations are based on three main things. The first is consent. This is a really big issue. If there's no governmental protection, if there's not really any laws in place to protect people's traditional knowledge, then it's really important that healers or others understand what is going to happen to their knowledge. So in the case of healing seekers, it means informing healers about the fact that videos being taken are going to be potentially shown to the world. It also means compensating healers or communities for, if they do consent to accessing their traditional knowledge, for the use of that. It also involves, I think, building really longer-term relationships. In order to adequately really compensate a community, you have to understand what is their understanding of ownership and of knowledge and where this knowledge comes from, and that just can't happen on a 2-week trip. So I think it's really important for healing seekers to build longer-term relationships in some places. So during this whole project, It felt very Guilford to me. I think definitely it was great to learn to apply an ethics to a real life situation. I was thinking of.
In our research, we were heavily guided by the core values of stewardship and excellence. Stewardship is the responsible use and management of surrounding resources, and we wanted to keep this in mind for ourselves, as well as kind of keep a global perspective on allowing indigenous populations to have their own stewardship over their own resources. And we were guided by excellence, which we wanted to apply in the lab to hold ourselves to the highest possible research standards, as well as through the ethical examination and analysis of the different problems that we were noticing. We do, as I mentioned earlier, hope to continue working with Amy and Healing Seekers to complete our lab research in the coming semesters. And I personally want to continue to raise awareness for the issues that I stated earlier of bioprospecting and the effects that it has on indigenous populations and peoples, as well as promoting alongside that indigenous research and indigenous participation in this dialogue, so that it's not just all Western discussions about other people. I would like to take a second to reflect on the trip to Madagascar and how it profoundly affected my research, and I know it definitely affected the other groups as well. Without the Madagascar experience, my project would not be anywhere near what it is as you see today. Without being able to meet individual healers and meet individual people and have this kind of discussion and dialogue between them about what we wanted to do, and seeing how Amy worked with Healing Seekers, I definitely would not have any of the ethical questions or analysis that I do. And so I'm very grateful that we were able to take this trip.
Hi, I'm Tara Streffling, and I worked with David Hildreth for my project. We did our research based at Gateway Gardens, and our project is called An Opportunity to Continue and Experience Nature. So something to think about, a quote to start with, is the nature of childhood has changed. There's not much nature in it. American childhood has moved indoors during the last 2 decades, taking a mental and physical toll on today's kids. The negative impact of decreased time outdoors includes a doubling of the childhood obesity rate, as well as declining creativity, concentration, and social skills. And with some of the research that we have found, we've found that most children today spend about 8 hours a day with media and only about 1% of their time outside. So our research was kind of based on a book by Richard Louv, and it was called Last Child in the Woods. He coined this term nature deficit disorder, and it's just basically talking about how people and kids don't really get outdoors and experience nature anymore, and they're not having these like great experiential learning opportunities. And some of the reasons we know of, the most common is technology and media. People are consumed by it. Everybody has really hectic and busy lives. People and kids especially even have too much structured time right now. And most family are trying to keep up with the Joneses. And so with that being said, and all this research that we found, we actually wanted to see with nature places like that in Greensboro, if people actually came out and used spaces like the Bog Garden, which I had the opportunity to work with last year. And this year, I wanted to go to Madagascar, but we were actually asked by Greensboro Beautiful if we could continue our research at a different garden, and so yeah, we did that. The differences between the gardens are the Greensboro Bog Garden is more of like an unstructured garden. It's very more like a wildlife nature place. It's in a very affluent area. There's a lot of shopping stores around it, and it's even a very popular tourist location that we found. And and it's been around for a while too. And the Gateway Gardens was built not that long ago. It has been around for a few years, And this is in a completely different neighborhood. It's on Lee Street. It's a completely different economic area. It's a little more diverse in the neighborhood and the people who live there. And so we wanted to see, kind of what the differences were in like the people who went to this park versus the other one. And if